This is the IDP After Show.
All right, welcome into the IDP After Show. I am your host, Jeff Pomazal. In this episode, my special guest, Mr. Green Dot himself, Mike Woolert, and I are going to dive into the IDP stock market and do a little buy, sell, and hold with everyone's favorite position, the offensive lineman. No, just kidding. It's the linebackers, of course. Mike, how you doing?
Not too bad. Well, does that mean like I got to scrap all my research? Because like I have like Tyler Lindenbaum and I've got Wyatt Teller. So do I have to basically just scrap all of it and just kind of fly off the seat of my pants now?
If you're able to talk a little linebackers tonight, I'm sure everybody would appreciate that.
All right. Well, I'll certainly do my best.
All right. Well, that's all we can ask. That's all we can ask. So if you have any money invested, especially lately, you know how volatile that ride can be. The same can be said for our IDP assets. Literally can change on a daily basis. In this episode, Mike and I are going to try to help you find just the right stocks to invest in. Mike, how's that sound to you?
Let's do it. Let's get it.
Let's do it. Okay. So Mike, before we get started, we've covered the defensive linemen already. We covered the defensive backs in prior episodes. And I asked each Eric and Jace, what was their approach to IDP assets in their dynasty leagues? I said that my approach had kind of changed a little bit in the last few years, treating them more as a redraft approach where I'm much more willing to move on from them than I was when I first started playing dynasty. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts about that. And then like, does that play into your roster construction at all?
Yeah, just because with these rookie linebackers, they're not thrust into a starting role or a 3-down role anymore. It's like I'm thinking of it for mostly from kind of a redraft where I'm going to get 2 or 3 known commodities, known guys that I can trust putting into a starting lineup, and then take some of these rookies and just build for the future. No, okay, these guys aren't probably going to do anything for the first year, maybe 2. I'm good as long as I've got a good core of young guys that can that I can withstand for a year or 2.
Are you, with that being said, Mike, are you the team that will never have like a junior Colson, an Edgerrin Cooper, Payton Wilson on your team?
No, I won't say that. Yeah, no, I won't say that, but I won't cry if those guys get drafted before I'm willing to take them. Like I like when I've like in the past when I've done dynasties or when I've done startups, I kind of come at it like, you know what, I'm just going to try to win this league now. I don't care. So like I'll take a CJ Mosley. And is that a smart idea? I don't know, because you just never know. But I'll take a known commodity, or I'll take like an Ivan Pace, or I'll take a Kenneth Murray before I take a rookie. Because I know they're going to get on the field, and that's what I want.
Yeah, we're chasing that volume for sure. So
yeah.
So with that said, Mike, who are some linebackers you're actively looking to try to acquire on your dynasty rosters or in your leagues this year? So who do you got for a name for us?
Well, we're looking from dynasty, probably Tyrel Dodson, because this is like the first time he's going to have any significant snaps or a significant role. So Dodson is a guy that I'm going to look to acquire. I know Baker, I guess you could say, got the higher free agent capital, but I think Dodson, is the better player, is the younger player. He's looking like the LB1 in Seattle. It looks like he's going to be the play caller. I'm still not buying into Jerome Baker. The LB2 in Seattle scheme is probably going to have about 75% of the snaps. Linebackers have produced at about a 14% tackle rate, but that was with Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks. But Dodson produced a pretty similar tackle rate in a part-time role last season. Seattle's also a top zone defense, and if you heard Macri and I on linebackers, we were talking about zone defenses and man defenses, and zone was a very tackle friendly defense. So with Seattle running probably one of the top zone defenses, I think Dodson's going to see plenty of tackle opportunities. He graded as one of PFF's top coverage linebackers, and last season, like I said, recorded about a 13.5% tackle rate.
So, Mike, in that little clip, I heard you talk about tackle percentage a couple times. What's a good or an ideal target number that we want to see from our linebackers for a tackle percentage?
So if you're from your LB1, you want anything basically 14.5 or higher. Like your Foye Oluokun are about in that 14 to 15 range. Alex Singleton has been insane. He's been in an 18% range. So with your LB1, you're looking at anywhere between you want about a 14.5% tackle rate, because if you're thinking about it, okay, 14.5, my linebacker's playing 1,000 snaps in a given season. That's going to give me 145 tackles. So that's kind of where I come from. Your LB2, you probably want to be between 13 to 14. LB3, you're probably looking at anywhere between 12 to 13. And LB4s and below, you're then kind of dipping below 12%. So Jerome Baker's been around 10% over the last couple of years, but was drafted as that, as an LB2. And he just hasn't been giving you the production. And same thing with Pete Werner. He was in that 10.5 range. And last year, I know he was drafted pretty high. So, but that's kind of the range that I'm looking at it when I'm looking at tackle rates and my LB1s.
So, Mike, when you mentioned that 14% tackle rate, how many linebacker ones were there last year above that threshold number that we're kind of looking for?
There were 12 that were had that full-time role. Jack Gibbens came in at about a 15%, playing at about 55% of the snaps. Ivan Pace had a 14%, 14.4 tackle percent, playing at about 62% of the snaps. So, those guys should see an increase in snaps. So yeah, there was 12 linebackers that were in that full-time range of 80 to 90% or more of the snaps that were in that 14% range.
So it's kind of interesting when you to look at those numbers. When we think about an LB1, we think of like the top producing scoring guys, but really when we're looking at linebacker ones, we might have to start looking at tackle percentages with volume, as as a predictor of who that next breakout candidate might be.
But the thing, and also you do still want to look at the snaps, because like CJ Mosley is also a top linebacker. He played in over 1,100 snaps. He had a 13.5% tackle rate, so he still produced at a little bit of a higher volume. So it's not the gospel, but definitely a guide for you to kind of want to consider.
Good stuff. Sorry we went down a rabbit hole on that one, but we'll bring it back here with my top target or acquisition guy to acquire. I'm looking at KJ Britt of the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's currently kind of going off the board as like linebacker 68 right now, going in best ball drafts with an ADP of 195, which seems super late. A lot of reasons I like Britt. First and foremost, there's no White anymore. So like we said in the last little spiel, opportunity. There's really no competition for snaps. It's a little baffling to me that a guy like Cervese Dennis is going just a few spots behind him at linebacker 74. And I've heard zero camp buzz about Dennis at all. And he was pretty bad last season as far as an efficiency standpoint and just a statistical standpoint. He wasn't a threat at all. Britt came in the last 6 games, started the last 2. He had 120 snaps over the last 2 games, 14 tackles, a sack. So he's ultra productive. I know that PFF grades don't tell the whole story, but when we look at PFF grades, they're a good metric to seeing if a guy's going to stay on the field. And he had some pretty decent numbers last year. He had a 79.3 overall. He was actually the highest rated Tampa Bay linebacker. So he's going to see the field. Obviously, Levante David's not going anywhere, but I think they have a really solid 1-2 punch there with him and David. Todd Bowles loves him. Other players on the defense love him. He's like that old school linebacker, trash talking. So, I'm all in on Britt this year, especially at his current ADP. So, all right, Mike, that'll bring us up to your second candidate that you're looking at acquiring on your teams. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to try to get Trenton Simpson from Baltimore. Looking at a pretty big increase in snap volume with Patrick Queen heading over to the rival Pittsburgh Steelers. He's looking like the clear LB2 opposite Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith has talked this kid up all offseason, saying, yeah, this kid can play. He's just totally on my side. He's attached at the hip. He's asking me questions, wants to know this, and is totally trying to get better, trying to really perfect and really prepare himself for the season. Last season, both Baltimore linebackers appeared in over 95% of the snaps. They were middle in the pack in terms of zone versus man, but were very productive tackle wise. I mean, Patrick Queen had, I think, over 100. I mean, he was around 120, 130 tackles. Simpson has looked good in the preseason. He had a really strong game against the Steelers in week 18. In 26 snaps, he only had 7 tackles and had a sack. So I think Baltimore said, all right, that's all that we need to see. If we can't re-sign Patrick Queen, I think we feel very comfortable in bringing in Trenton Simpson. So, and as far as I can tell, he's, again, kind of a guy that, ADP wise in mixed leagues is, going, not a forgotten guy, but I mean, I've been noticing him. You can get him as like an LB4, LB5 in kind of those mid to late rounds of an IDP mixed league. And you're looking at a potential breakout season. If this kid plays 900,000 snaps, I know he's not going to produce a 28% tackle rate. That is unsustainable. But I mean, if he gets to between 12.5%, 13%, he is going to completely obliterate his ADP.
Yeah, especially where you're getting him in drafts. If you're drafting him as LB3 or 4 and he's going to have that kind of upside, that's, sign me up all day. And especially you got to love a young player who is hungry to learn and attaches himself to like a vet or a pro like Roquan Smith. I mean, he knows obviously what he's doing, so he's going to bring the kid along. He's definitely a Robin to his Batman. So,
yep, for sure.
Speaking of another Robin to a Batman, my second linebacker to be looking for right now is EJ Speed of the Indianapolis Colts. He's currently linebacker 37, a little bit higher price tag than some of the other ones, but definitely think someone who can return on value. He has the clear LB2 in that defense. He and Zaire have a great relationship. They do podcasts together. So that's just shows that team bond and everything like that. And I don't think there's anyone that's going to compete with Speed, barring health, that he's going to have any competition for. Like Britt, he was the highest rated linebacker in Indy last season, according to PFF, even above Franklin. He didn't play all season. I know that they were kind of dealing with the whole like Shaq Leonard soap opera last year and stuff like that. So he only started the last 6 games of the season. But despite that, he had 102 combined tackles and a sack. And he finished last season as a linebacker 38 in Big 3 scoring. And he's currently being drafted as linebacker 37, despite only playing like half the season, so going to see an increase in volume and snaps, no competition. So I just really am in on Speed this year as being a good return on value. So
yeah, I like DJ Speed too.
Good. And then, so Mike, we were obviously talking about some guys like looking at in dynasty leagues here. Is there another linebacker that you're kind of looking at right now that maybe is not like a dynasty target, but maybe somebody who you're maybe can get pretty cheap that you want?
Yeah, if you're looking at kind of like a redraft or kind of like maybe even a throw-in, test the market on Devondre Campbell. Who knows how long Dre Greenlaw is going to be out? I mean, he tore his Achilles at the beginning of the year on the Super Bowl. Never an ideal time to tear your Achilles, but especially last game of the season. We're not sure when Dre Greenlaw is going to be back. He's got a wide range of potential outcomes, but Campbell's going to have weekly value. 49ers are primarily a 2 linebacker system, so that LB2 has averaged a 90% snap rate. Zone heavy scheme translates to IDP friendly production. Campbell has that track record of production. Werner and Campbell can make a pretty sneaky linebacker duo. So if you can get Campbell as kind of a throw-in, or maybe even I doubt he would be on a waiver wire, but like if you can just kind of get him as a throw-in, he's going to have weekly value until Dre Greenlaw ends up returning.
Yeah, and news out of San Francisco right now is, like you said, Mike, there's a wide range of outcomes. Like he literally tore his Achilles on the very last game of the season. You can't get any later in the year than when he tore it. And, as I know that science has come a long way with recovery and the whole surgery thing, but that's still a major injury. And there's been a track record of players not being able to return from those kind of things. So
yep.
I love Dre Greenlaw. So. All right. Before we move on to our sell candidates, Mike, is there anyone that you're like getting super late in best balls, somebody late that you're just like finding on waiver wires in your leagues that you're just like kind of scooping up everywhere you go?
DeMarvion Overshawn with Dallas totally had a red shirt rookie year because he tore his ACL before the season even started. Potential rotation between Damone Clark and himself, but I don't know if Overshawn gets that LB2 spot, he's in a pretty good spot for production next to Kendricks. Another is Muhammad Diabate over in Cleveland. He's had a pretty solid preseason, 5 tackles, 67 snaps, has had a tackle for loss and a quarterback hit. He's also been wearing the dot in Jordan Hicks's absence, and the Browns and Stefanski and Kevin Stefanski have been extremely quiet on Hicks's injury, and they haven't even told anything of it. It's just an injury. It's undisclosed. He's dealing with something, and they're not even disclosing what he has. So I am a little bit concerned on Hicks. I've been avoiding him in drafts, and getting to the point now where I'm probably going to end up lowering his production or his projection. Probably should have done it, but now we're getting towards week 3. He's probably not going to play again. They're saying he's probably going to be ready for week 1, but I don't know. So I'm thinking have Diabate kind of queued up and as kind of a last round flyer who could maybe get a 3-down role for a couple of games. And then Trevin Wallace with Carolina. I know he's been playing alongside I don't even remember the guy's name. Cheryl, I don't know if it's Cherilus, but it's
or something. Yeah.
Cherilus, yeah. So Shaq Thompson and Josie Jewell have each dealt with their fair share of injuries. Shaq Thompson already dealing with a hamstring. We know Josie Jewell can miss a handful of games throughout the course of the season. So, just kind of one of those injury flyers that you might want to be ahead of instead of reacting to when it comes to picking up on waiver wires or drafting somebody late.
Yeah, I love those calls. Those are a lot of great names, especially, as we get into the season. We got those aging veterans who have been dinged up in the past and already dinged up. And now's the time of the year when you want to be the healthiest. You don't want to go into the season being hurt. And, unfortunately, somebody like Shaq Thompson or Hicks already going into the season dinged up, and that's kind of a scary, slippery slope to be riding. So for me, my linebacker that I'm kind of scooping up everywhere late, just kind of passed over, especially with the rookie hype of Edgerrin Cooper, is Isaiah McDuffie of the Packers. He was super solid last season when he was called upon. He had a lot of games where he was stepping up for injured linebackers in front of him. He's had a solid training camp. Edgerrin Cooper's been dinged up himself already, so it's tough enough for a rookie to overtake a veteran. But when you are dinged up, it's going to be nearly impossible. And so he's a great bye week guy that if you can get right now for next to nothing. So that's where I'm going with that one. So. All right, let's move into our next category here, Mike. Who are some players that you are feeling that they're going to drop off from last season's production, but you still want to kind of maximize their value? So who's a player right now that you're actively trying to move or sell off your rosters?
You know what? I'm going to try to take advantage of the injury in Buffalo, and I'm going to try to move Dorian Williams. Maybe send a deal out to the Matt Milano owner. I think his sell high window is open with his injury, with that Milano injury. Could there be a rotation again? At this time last week, we had no idea who Joe Andreessen was. So he's certainly thrown his hat into the mix in terms of the rotation. Buffalo had a rotation at that linebacker 2 spot throughout the season until Tyrel Dodson had a few until about week 9. He didn't have a completely full-time role, but I believe 4 out of those last 8 or 9 games, he was playing about 80% of the snaps. And I know he's playing anywhere between 70 to 80% of the snaps. So there could be a rotation. You've got, you do have Dorian, you got Andreessen. Nicholas Morrow's been talked about as a cap or a cut casualty. Deion Jones, I don't think is going to make the team. I know Balin Spector is still there. So you do have a little bit of a mess there at that LB2 spot. So take advantage of the sell high window, I think, with Dorian Williams.
I feel like Buffalo has had a mess of linebackers going back to last preseason too, because I remember these same kind of conversations, like who's going to be LB2. Milano went down. I thought it was pretty early last year as well. And we were kind of like questioning who was it? Is it going to be the rookie Dorian Williams? Was it going to be someone else? It was just kind of that same conversation we're having this year too. So yeah, totally can get on board with that.
Yep.
This is going to probably make me really unpopular, but I'm going to One of the players I'm actively looking to sell if I have them is Fred Werner, San Francisco linebacker. He's currently linebacker number 3 right now in a lot of drafts. He's going off the board as ADP 14.7, which is just super high. First of all, I'm not a hater of Fred Werner. I love his play. I love how he plays the game. But anytime I can tier down and add more assets, I'm especially on the IDP side of my roster, I'm going to do that. And Werner right now is a great player to do that, in my opinion. He's being drafted right now as LB3, not a LB3, the LB3. Mike, do you know how many games Werner's missed in his 8-year career?
Well, I think he played all 7. I'm pretty sure he played all 17 last year, but
I'll give you a clue.
I know you say
it rhymes with hero.
Okay, 0. Okay, so he's DeMario
Yeah.
Davis. Okay, that's what I figured. I know he played 17, but okay.
So you can't get that kind of production from anywhere. I mean, he's always on the field. He's there all the time. One more question for you. How many times does he finish as the LB3 for a season in his career?
Oh,
Ryan.
I know he has. I know he hasn't done that.
Yeah. So we're drafting him at his absolute ceiling. We're drafting him higher than he's ever finished before. And I get the consistency at the position and wanting to like lock that down. And Werner is going to be very consistent. He's consistently a top 12 linebacker in leagues, but he's never been that high. But if I can tier down to like a Singleton, or if I can buy an aging Wagner and add more assets to my team to help my team out somewhere else, I'm definitely going to do that. I don't feel there's that big of a gap between the production at the end of the season from Werner and a Singleton or Wagner at this point, but someone might want to buy that name recognition. So again, it's not like I don't like Werner. I love his play and stuff like that, but if I can help my team out, I'm definitely going to do that. A little caveat here. If you are going to sell Werner, I'd probably wait till about week 6, because he's probably going to go nuclear without Dre Greenlaw there. And so you're probably going to get more in return at that point. So right now he'd be a sell candidate for me. So, all right. I'm ducking for tomatoes flying my direction now, Mike. So before that happens, can you go on and tell us your second sell candidate?
I'm going to try to sell Pete Werner. I think an extension is signifying some more playing time, a solidified role, plus Willie Gay is there. Is he going to eat into snaps? I don't know, but I think Pete Werner, like I said, I think that extension is kind of solidified. Okay, now we got to play this guy to see what kind of ROI we can get from this guy. Had a really promising rookie year, but since his rookie year, those PFF grades have gone down. And last year, and this past year, from what I remember, I think his tackle rate was only around 11%. So it might have even been a little bit less than that. I think it was at least between 10.5 and 11. But those PFF grades have gone down, and they don't signify production. But what PFF grades can help you is identify maybe some of those guys that could be in line to losing snaps. So is this going to happen to him? I don't know, but I'm going to sell on Werner and hopefully try to sell him to maybe a person who may need some linebackers.
Yeah, anytime there's question marks around players, I like to try to move off of them. I don't like to play the what if game going into the season. You know, if you got too many ifs, then it's just putting your team in a bad spot. So one thing I do know is Frankie Luvu is my next sell candidate. The Washington Commanders. He's currently linebacker 16 off the board right now, ADP of 46.3. Anytime a player moves to a new team, there's always a little bit of hype. So I'd like to try to capitalize that if I can. Luvu was with the Carolina Panthers last year. Obviously, he came over to the Commanders this season. So far this preseason, he's played 15 snaps. He's played 7 of them in run defense, 5 of them against rushing the quarterback, and 3 in coverage. I feel like Dan Quinn is trying to make him the Micah Parsons of the Washington Commanders. And if you guys know anything about the tackle efficiency of that role that Parsons played, it's pretty poor. Parsons' most tackles he had in a season was 84, and that was his rookie season. Luvu had 103 in 2022 and 122 in 2023. I don't think he's getting close to that number again, playing that role in Dan Quinn's defense there in Washington. He's also playing alongside Wagner, who can diagnose plays better than anybody he's ever played with. They also have Jeremy Chin there, who's probably going to be sliding down in the box, being that hybrid defensive back linebacker role. So that, and also this defensive line doesn't excite me, keeping that second level very clean. they moved on from Montez Sweat last season. So I'm not excited about this defensive line scaring anybody. So, Luvu is going way too high for me right now. So,
yeah, I can't. Yeah, I mean, I think Luvu is probably better left for like best ball drafts. He'll be prone to those ceiling weeks. But like in redraft, I don't think he's never really entered my radar. And, you've got Jamin Davis now playing the edge, and outside of Allen and Payne, I mean, there's going to be a lot of players getting outside.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't see the trying to force the round peg into a square hole, kind of what they're trying to do there. So you're saying that Luvu is Micah Parsons, and he's definitely not Micah Parsons. So
no, that's laughable.
Yeah. So do you have one more sell candidate for us before we move on, Mike?
You know what? He's probably a little bit old, so you probably are. I mean, you're probably not going to be able to sell him off, but maybe Jerome Baker. Just kind of has that name recognition. Has had some 100 tackle seasons. He's got some free agent capital, but I just don't see him as kind of worth holding on to anymore. His tackle efficiency has been on the decline. And even though he's in a tackle heavy or a tackle friendly scheme in Seattle, I just don't see a high tackle floor here anymore. And again, Baker's got a good name. He's got a history of production, but if you can, I'd probably, he's probably someone I'm trying to, maybe move off of, if I can.
Interesting that you have Dodson as a buy candidate, from the same team and stuff like that. So it's playing chess, not checkers, Mike. Playing chess, not checkers.
Or Parcheesi.
Okay. Whatever you got. All right. So finally, we did our buys. We did ourselves. Mike, who are some players that your league mates that you have just aren't in on a guy for injuries, new situation, whatever it might have been, but you're just not willing to move off of or drop? Who are some of those players that you just you're hoping that they're your guy this year?
So I think this one might be tough. I think I'm still going to try to hold on to Nakobe Dean. He's had a good preseason. PFF grades have been solid. I think he's earned more time with the ones, and I don't know. I know Fangio has had this affair with Zach Baun and he's gotten the ones, but I just don't know. I just don't see it. So I know Fangio does not care about your draft capital, but there's just something about him. And I am a little bit worried about his health and him standing up to a full season, but it does seem like something like a little bit, I know this is fantastic analysis, but it's that fire that's been lit under him. I mean, I think of that training camp practice right after the game. He started with the ones. I think he had an interception off of Jalen Hurts. I think he had a good pass breakup in coverage. And I think he even had a sack. So for those next couple of days, the beat writer has been saying these last 2 days for Nakobe Dean have been fantastic days. He's really starting to kind of pick things up and is really starting to, take this competition seriously. So I think I'm kind of flip-flopping. I think I'm like, all right, I'm letting other people take Baun, and I'll just maybe scoop up Dean at the end and just kind of see what happens.
And I'm going to take the flip side of that coin. A player that I have right now in a lot of rosters that I can't move or do anything with, and I can't cut, it is Zach Baun. He's going as linebacker 93 right now in best ball drafts and things like that. I'm just not sure that anyone can trust Fangio because he's thrown a lot of people some shade this offseason. He had that whole stuff with Bryce Huff and stuff like that. So it's kind of tough, especially with Nakobe Dean being kind of crowned as the second coming of Luke Kuechly. Dean is going to be the guy for every season. He was going to be at his rookie year. He was going to be at last year, and so it's hard for managers to move on from that. And I don't know if anyone trusts the preseason or the stats maybe more than I do, but like looking at where Baun has been playing. He's been playing the first few snaps for every game, and he comes out. He's getting that starter's treatment. It feels like he was free in leagues a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if like managers look at things like that and say, well, you just picked him up. He's not worth anything. He's not going to start. I'm not going to invest in that or things like that. Right now, if he's an LB3 or 4 on my team, I'm pretty happy. But I don't want to go into the season with him as like my LB2. That makes me a little leery. Just like you said, Mike, for the reasons with like Dean might get that fire lit and he might become something, and I'm stuck with chasing linebacker points all week or all season, excuse me. But so Baun is one of those players I just can't move right now. I'm not going to get anything for. So unfortunately, I think I'm just going to have to ride out and see, if I'm going to look really smart or I'm going to look really dumb. But we'll see where that goes. Who do you have as another linebacker you have rostered right now that you just can't move from?
So I know I mentioned one name, but I'm gonna go in a different direction. So one, you mentioned Luke Kuechly. I drafted Luke Kuechly as a rookie in 2012, and after about 2 or 3 seasons, I just loved him, loved his play, and I was like, all right, this is just one guy that's just gonna die on my roster. I even had trouble cutting him after he retired. I'm like, maybe he'll come back. I don't know, but he was my ride or die. Sometimes there are those guys, we talk, okay, I've got this guy, he's an elite producer. It's time to move him. Like, you know what? You got an elite producer. Sometimes just hold on to him and just enjoy the production. Why try to move that? You know what? I think the one guy that I've identified here is kind of that guy. He's on one of my keeper leagues. I've kept him for the last couple of years, and it's TJ Edwards. He's just an underrated linebacker. He's ultra productive. He's an elite producer. Tremaine Edmonds, I know, is next to him, but he just has that. He just has that mentality, almost like he knows where the play is going, and he's going to get to the ball and he's going to make the tackle. So TJ Edwards on my roster right now is going to die on my roster. So he's going to be one of those guys where I'm just going to ride out his production. If it starts tailing off, then you know what? We'll ride or die. We'll drive off the cliff together.
He's not that old, right? He's only in his like 7th or 8th season. So you got some time. It's not.
We got a few years of him,
yeah,
but
he's not Bobby Wagner yet. So
no. And even, you know what? Bobby Wagner's another one of those guys that is going to die. If I have him, he's just going to die on my roster.
I thought that's where you were going when you were setting that up.
But I didn't know. TJ Edwards, he's kind of entering the prime, but he's, he could be one of those guys, I'm going to sell high on him right now. I'm like, no, why? Just enjoy the 140, 150 tackles that he's going to give you every season.
Yep. The Bears have definitely been trying to improve that defensive line. That's the one hiccup I have with Edwards. If they can improve that defensive line a little bit more, and I know they've been trying. They tried to get on the Matthew Judon deal. They signed Taylor today, right?
Darrell Taylor.
Yeah. So they're definitely trying to improve that defensive line. So, if they can improve that a little bit, I think that's going to make Edwards' job 1,000 times easier. So I love that call.
Yep.
My guy this year, I've been flag planting, Jonas Griffith for the Denver Broncos. He's basically free everywhere right now. The Broncos have tried to make him the guy for a while. They traded from San Francisco to get him. They want him to be the thing. I don't know if the new coaching staff wants him to be that guy, but he's just kind of always there. Unfortunately, he's always injury plagued, and he's already again dinged up this season. He only has Cody Barton in front of him, which in Mile High City is probably not the tallest mountain to probably overcome. Maybe it's just me being thick-headed and stubborn, but I want him to be the guy and I want him to be the thing. So, I think it's probably more with my heart than my head that I'm picking Jonas Griffith here, but he's got some good tape. He had some good running in preseason. Mm-hmm. Like I said, Barton's not the elitist of linebackers in front of him. So
no, he's not great.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, now that we've covered that part of our buy, sells, and hold, what we're going to do now is we're going to cover some of the players heading into those categories that we have in this upcoming season. We're going to head over to the IDPshow.com website. We're going to bring up the current IDP, ADP, and dive into some players and offer you our takes on who we would buy, sell, and hold based on their current data. And this is all being pulled from the 2024 IDP best ball drafts. All of this data is available with numerous articles and rankings, live roster evaluations, trade tools on the website. So be sure to stop on over to the website and check it out. For this exercise, Mike, we're going to pretend that we are rostering all three of these players, and we're going to do what we can do for our teams with our roster management and construction. So we're going to dive right into the very top. We're going to go linebacker 1, 2, and 3 right now, and we're just going to do a little buy, sell, hold. So we have Foye Oluokun, LB1, ADP of 8.7. Roquan Smith, LB2, is ADP is 10.4, and Fred Werner, LB3, ADP 14.7. So of those three, Mike, who you buying, who you selling, who you holding?
I'm buying Oluokun. 2 straight years of elite tackle production, 100 solos. Has been the tackle leader. He's been the LB1 overall scorer now for 2 straight seasons. So it's like, all right, why? I'm just going to continue riding that wave. So I am buying Foye Oluokun, and he's just been an elite linebacker since coming over from Atlanta.
I'm buying the same. For all those reasons. There's no reason to doubt that he's going to be it. The only hesitation, I heard that he kind of moved positions. I heard that Devin Lloyd's playing more of the mic now. I don't know if that's going to really impact his production. But past production 2 seasons, sign me up. There's no reason not to. So who are you selling of that trio?
I'm probably selling Fred Werner. Out of these 3, he's never had a 160 or 170 plus tackle season. He's always been around that 125, 130 mark. So I will probably be selling Fred Werner, and I love Fred Werner as a football player.
Yep. And I already shared my thoughts on this exactly the same. I'm selling him for the same reasons. It's foolish for you to buy a player at their absolute ceiling when he's not been able to produce at that ceiling yet. We're buying Oluokun because he's been the LB1 2 seasons. He has a track record of that. Werner doesn't have a track record of being the LB3 even, and we're buying him there. So that's an easy sell for me. And then obviously you're holding Roquan Smith. What's the reason there?
Just like all the other all of these other elite linebackers, like a Bobby Wagner, or a TJ Edwards, or it's just elite production. He's a guy, he's like that. He's your slow cooker. You pop in a roast, set it, forget it. 8 hours later, you've got 160 tackles. So you just set it, forget it. He's just that easy guy you can set in your lineup, and basically you don't even have to worry.
I think somewhere there's an analogy about mom's meatloaf, and I think that Roquan Smith is that mom's meatloaf kind of guy. Yeah. So I love the idea of holding him here, especially with no more Queen. I think he's going to eat even more than last season. He's probably the biggest threat, I think, to Oluokun not being the LB1 this year. So makes me happy that we agree on that one. We probably won't agree on all of these. So let's move on to some LB2s with some LB1 upside. We have JOK. He's currently LB19. Robert Spillane is LB23, and Devin Lloyd is LB24. So of those 3, Mike, who are you buying?
I'm buying Robert Spillane. Last year, his first year as a full-time linebacker, as a 3 down full-time, all of it. He was pretty much relegated to kind of a dime linebacker in Pittsburgh, but came over to the Raiders and immediately took on a leadership role, wore the dot, is continuing to wear the dot this season. Immediate production, 140 tackles. So it doesn't look like he's giving that role up anytime soon. Still relatively young, if I'm not mistaken. He's about 26. So right entering the prime of his career with tackle production. That's what he did within his first year. I'm certainly very intrigued in what he's going to do the remainder of his career. If he's going to stay in Vegas, or if he's, is going to take advantage of a production and, sign a bigger contract somewhere. But I was very impressed with Spillane's first season as a 3-down linebacker.
And we talked about coaches who love their players. Antonio Pierce loves Spillane. They obviously didn't do anything in free agency. They didn't do anything in the draft. And so Spillane is really, really their guy. Antonio Pierce went to Spillane and said, we're going to build this defense around you, and you're going to do it. And he rose to the challenge. So yeah, I really like the Raiders defense, what they're doing. I think they're really rallying around Pierce there. My buy though is going to be Devin Lloyd. A couple of reasons. One, he's the cheapest of these. He's the lowest, the ADP. I do like his new role that he's going to be playing more of the mic. He really started to score well as the season progressed last year. I know he got benched for Chad Muma for a couple of games, but after that benching, he came back and just kind of really scored really well. I don't think he's a threat to negate anything Oluokun can do, but I just like the cost here with Lloyd, and I think that he's going to really exceed in that kind of new role in Jacksonville. And then, so Mike, then who would be your sell of these three?
My sell is Devin Lloyd. I'm going to take advantage of the position change because, in my opinion, it doesn't mean anything. I think for me, Mike, Will, Sam it doesn't really mean anything anymore as it did when I started playing. These two got there's usually two linebackers on the field anywhere. They're interchanging left and right. One may play a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, but for the most part, their role really isn't changing for the most part. So if someone wants to think, oh, Mike linebacker, that's going to be 160 tackles, 4-3, Mike, I'm going to take advantage of some of that terminology that is still ingrained in people's heads. I'm like, all right, I'm going to sell this guy if he thinks he's going to get 160, 170 tackles and outproduce Foye Oluokun. Done. You want to give me a second-round pick for Devin Lloyd? Done. Let's do it. Smash accept. So that's where I'm coming up from Devin Lloyd. That's why I'm selling. Going to be a productive linebacker, pretty solid. Going to be probably a solid LB2. I mean, you can pretty much. I think you can pencil him for 120, 130 tackles. But yeah, I just he's the mic role. It's like I said. I just think it's one of those terms that is kind of slowly going away, because I even think Mike, he's going to call the plays. I'm like, no, never mind. No. So I'm trying to stop myself from like getting too overcaught and too overhyped about, getting caught up into that change.
So not to go down a rabbit hole again, but do you feel that sometimes we get wrapped up in like depth charts and, like looking at like sites that have rosters, like they're running a 4-3 and these are the linebacker positions. Do you feel sometimes like as a IDP manager, that myself included, we get wrapped up in like what those depth charts look like and maybe make decisions based on that when, like you gave the example, like there is no real true Sam, Mike, and Will anymore. Same can be said with the safety position, There's not a strong enough free safety really anymore. They're a safety. So I don't know.
Yeah, I do think so. Because when you look at it, most defenses ran a 4-2-5. And I think a 3-3-5 was, I think, maybe even the next popular. So those defenses don't really, mean too much anymore. And, on Macri's podcast, one of the things that I started off, I think the new 4-3-3-4 is zone man. I think that's really what I think that's almost becoming kind of that trend. Like if like the zone schemes are producing tackle friendly production. So that's kind of what I've been noticing over the last couple of years. And I think some of those stats, are kind of are bearing it out right now.
Yeah, and I know we've referenced the podcast that you did with Macri last week, but if you haven't checked that out, go over to PFF and do yourself a favor and check that out. It's well worth the hour and 59 minutes worth of listening pleasure that you and John put together. It's really a good listen. So, all right, get back to here. So you are buying Spillane, you are selling Devin Lloyd. That means obviously you're holding JOK.
I'm holding JOK. I'm making the assumption that there's going to be an increase in snaps and an increase in usage. So he only played 71% of the snaps last season, but was still pretty productive with those snaps. But I might be one of those guys. I'm in Cleveland, so drinking the Kool-Aid. He got the extension, so I'm like, okay, that's putting him into a kind of into that we drafted this guy. He's one of their guys. It's a draft pick. They think they nailed the draft pick. When you look at his numbers, I think he also provides a little bit of upside with some of those splash plays. He's going to get some of those TFLs. He's going to get a sack or two, force a fumble. So he's a guy that, I'm going to hold and hope that he plays, 85 to 90% of the snaps.
And he's a player that I'm going to look at selling just because of that new contract and the buzz around him. He's got the higher ADP of all of them. I feel like he's never lived up to the hype of what he has. He's been a 70-80% snap guy, I believe. He hasn't been that like true 100% player. They brought in Jordan Hicks to try to be the guy, and stuff like that. So I just feel like there's a lot of question marks around him, or like things holding him back. That would obviously leave Spillane as my hold. I don't think you're going to get anything what he's valued at. Very undervalued player. So I'm just gonna ride it out and have LB1 on my roster there. So
okay, right. And then I'm gonna sign off. And you, as a JOK hater, I am out of here.
No, I promise I won't say anything else bad about anybody in Cleveland. I love Drew Carey. No,
I don't.
Oh, okay. Is he even from Cleveland?
Yeah,
or
I think,
okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right. So moving on to our next three. You're still with me, Mike? Okay, this is okay. You're still there. Okay.
We're good.
Right. Blink twice if you're still there. All right. Next up, we have some linebacker threes who we're looking at hitting a home run with. This is where we win our leagues. We have Trenton Simpson as LB32. Eric Kendricks is linebacker 33, and Ivan Pace Jr. is linebacker 34. So of those trio, Mike, who you buying?
Buying Trenton Simpson. Again, buying the potential increase in snaps, usage in the defense, and then hopefully that tackle production. Young guy, obviously a young guy. You might have to pay a little bit more, but if you're kind of taking it, if you can take advantage of somebody who may not know a whole lot about Trenton Simpson, maybe you can kind of squeeze a little bit of something, maybe get a little bit of something for him. But yeah, I'm trying to buy Trenton Simpson for sure.
Yeah, I'm buying the hype. That one game last year at the end of the season was all I needed to see. And Baltimore has a history of being able to support two top linebackers there. So he's not going into a situation like Pittsburgh where we haven't really seen multiple linebackers being able to be supported, but Baltimore has definitely been able to do that. So I just think Simpson's going to be that queen replacement and hopefully looking at similar production. Who are you selling of this group?
Probably selling Kendricks. A little bit older, but reuniting with Mike Zimmer. Dallas is a heavy zone, so they are a very tackle-friendly scheme. So I'm going to try to use those couple of things as my advantage, and I'm going to try to sell Kendricks. The reuniting with Mike Zimmer was productive with him in Minnesota. Still a productive linebacker. Was dinged up a little bit, but he's entering, I think, his age 32, 33 season. If I can kind of take advantage, or if I can sell anything and try to take advantage of that name and his tackle production, that's what I'm going to try to do. Try to get a little bit what I can out of Kendricks.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with this too. Age, health, those declining metrics have all been kind of early warning signs to sell Kendricks. He was kind of let go from Minnesota because of like the pass coverage grade was kind of really starting to slip. He went to the Chargers for a few seasons, and so yeah, I'm looking to cash out on my Kendricks shares if I have any. That means obviously we're holding Ivan Pace. What's the rationale there?
I know with Blake Cashman brought in, some not confusion, but there's been some questions on who's going to be calling the plays. Did Ivan Pace lie to us, or did he spill the beans when maybe he wasn't supposed to, and maybe he's getting punished for it? I don't know, but I'm hoping we get some sort of clarification on who's going to call the plays tomorrow, or whenever Minnesota plays their Week 3 game. I'm assuming it's tomorrow, but hopefully we get some clarification on who's going to call the plays here in Minnesota. So Ivan Pace, the undrafted free agent, undersized, but he can play football. If you watched any of the games that he was in last season, you can tell he's always seems to be in good position to make plays, and he is a football player. So I'm going to hold pace and see how things shake out. I know Flores has kind of been a single linebacker coach. Pace did play 13 of those 14 snaps in that first weekend game. So I'm hoping to get into that 90% range and, we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, I'm totally on board here too. And I don't think the price tag is so unrealistic that you have to like have 100% linebacker here. You're getting him at the very end of linebacker 3 territory. So that's an easy hold for me too. So next up, we have some super deep sleepers. Somebody who's you're going to take it the last few rounds of your draft, maybe that LB6 spot on your roster, hoping for some bye week help there. So we have Jahlani Tavai as linebacker 69, Mack Wilson is linebacker 71, and Jack Gibbens is linebacker 73. Of these three, who is the buy candidate for you?
My buy candidate is Jack Gibbens. It looks like Tennessee could be a 2 linebacker system. Kenneth Murray has not really set the world on fire as a first round pick. Has been kind of an inefficient tackler. Comes in with high expectations, I think, from IDPers because he's going to be that Azeez Al-Shaair. But I am in no way projecting Kenneth Murray to have 160 tackles. Jack Gibbens is a solid player. I think he had 95 tackles in 500 snaps, so he's an ultra efficient tackler. I think Gibbens is in line to have potentially a full-time role. It looked like Tennessee was kind of that nickel 2 linebacker system in the preseason, and if that holds, Jack Gibbens looks like he could have an 85 to 90% snap rate. And with that, I mean, you're with that snap rate, and if he maintains that 13% tackle rate, you could be looking at 120 tackles this season. And as an LB 73 with that ADP, that just crushes it and puts you in a really good position.
Any concern with Cedric Gray there slipping into
this season? I'm not.
Okay.
This season, I'm not.
I am buying Mack Wilson hype this year. I know that in New England, he never really was what they wanted him to be, but he goes into Arizona as probably the healthiest player on that Arizona Cardinals defense right now. It seems like there must be something in the water, that turf, that just destroys defensive players there. I think that this is a smash spot for him to play really well against or with Kaiser White. And so he's going to be my LB6, LB7 on my roster, and he's just going to smash his ADP. So I'm going to buy him. My sell candidate is going to be Jahlani Tavai. I really never want to start this guy on my team. So I'm going to just do myself a favor and void that for my team. He's just kind of, I don't know, vanilla ice cream. He's just kind of boring. He's not going to do anything super flashy or big for my team. So I'm just going to move off from that. So Mike, who's your sell?
My sell is Mack Wilson. I'm going to sell the hype. He's never been a guy. He's always kind of been a jag. He was in Cleveland. Obviously, if Cleveland didn't find him worthwhile, then I don't know. I mean, he played pretty well in New England. Is taking advantage of the snaps, but I'm going to sell on Mack Wilson's hype. And then obviously that for me, Jahlani Tavai is a hold. Juwan Bentley, not much of a tackle floor, especially when it comes to his solos and assists. He's always been a 1-to-1 guy. So 50 solos, 50 assists, 55 solos, 55 assists. Jahlani Tavai, little younger, a little quicker. I mean, he had a very quiet 100 tackle season last season. So if Bentley either gets hurt or, falls out of favor with Gerard Mayo, he's just going to slide right in as a play caller. I know he called the plays during the preseason with Bentley out. So I'm just going to hold on to Vi and just kind of see what I can get out of it. And if he produces this year, then I'm probably going to, then you got a nice sell high candidate.
Yeah. And then that would leave obviously Gibbens for me as my hold. I don't think anyone's going to give you a lot for him compared to what his production is going to be. I would rather keep that production and, like you said, hopefully he hits. And then the investment on what I need to give up for Gibbens right now is next to nothing. So I'm going to keep that, buy low. Hopefully he has a great season that I can turn around and sell for much higher later. Our last category, Mike, is players who have yet to play an NFL snap. We have our rookies. We have Junior Colson, his linebacker 42. Edgerrin Cooper is linebacker 50. And Payton Wilson is way down at LB 67 at the moment. So of those three rookies, who are you buying?
I'm buying Payton Wilson. I don't know. Something tells me he could get a start or start playing significant snaps this season, maybe mid-season. I mean, Landon Roberts has been a pretty decent run stopper, but coverage has always been his liability. Roberts is just kind of a guy, decent player, good to have on your team, but I think Payton Wilson is going to be contributing sooner rather than later. And Wilson just seems like a tackle machine. And I think I want to get in on that, while I can.
Yeah, for me, my buy right now, I'm buying the hype with Junior Colson. I just think that connection with the draft capital, his old coach, there's really not a lot to overcome in LA right now. I know that Dean Henley is a favorite of a lot of people right now, analysts, but I just think with the draft capital they've invested in him, the connection with Harbaugh, I just think it's going to be hard not for him to see significant snaps sooner than later. I know he's been dinged up a little bit here this preseason, but they're not going anywhere this season. I think they're going to get him on the field, see what they've got in him. So he's going to be my buy. Who is your sell then of those three?
Junior Colson.
We should be in leagues together, Mike. We could do each other the favors in leagues.
I'm selling on the hype and I'm selling on the situation. I'm selling on these intangibles that people are willing to buy. I haven't seen him on the field. He had I think he had an appendectomy, so had I know it's minor, but it's still the surgery, has kind of missed some camp. So I'll take advantage of someone who wants to buy these intangibles and hasn't seen anything on the field. So I will sell Junior Colson.
Okay. And then, we could probably just do a swap because my sell would be Payton Wilson. The knees scare me. Pittsburgh scares me just because it hasn't been a place that we haven't seen two linebackers be fantasy relevant. Pittsburgh's been kind of a tough place for linebackers in general.
Yes,
like we have to go back several seasons before we find a LB2, let alone an LB1 finisher at the LB spot. So now if I've already got Queen there, it's going to be really hard splitting snaps. Like you said, with Landon Roberts, he's not going to go away. It's going to be really hard for Payton Wilson to become fantasy relevant. And so if I can sell off the preseason hype, then I'm going to do that for those reasons. So, we agree on one in this group. Edgerrin Cooper's your hold. Why is he your hold?
Again, really talented linebacker. I've seen, he's very quick, very speedy. And Isaiah McDuffie has really done a pretty good job so far in holding him off. How long is it going to last? I don't have the contract information offhand, but I mean, I'm sure McDuffie is not going to cost a lot for them to move off of, whether they release him or whether they just don't re-sign him to another contract. But I think Cooper is going to be a solid off-ball linebacker next to Quay Walker. I would probably assume next year, but we don't know. But Cooper is a guy that I'm going to hold.
Yeah, I agree with you. We haven't seen him really practice a lot this preseason, so he's not going to be able to overtake McDuffie. I think it's just a matter of time before that happens. And somewhere Kyle Bellafield is smiling right now, so we made him happy. So that's all that matters. All right, Mike, that'll wrap this one up. Before we head out, any final words of wisdom or takeaways from this pod, or anything you want to impart on us viewers about linebackers this season?
No, as always, just get your guys. We're just spewing not nonsense, but we're throwing some paper towels at a wall hoping it sticks. But I've always been a proponent of get your guys. So if there's guys that you're going to pound the table for, go ahead and trust your gut. So a lot of times your gut's not going to steer you wrong. But we're doing our best here. These are, once they hit the football field, all bets are off. But it's obviously a fun game to watch. and the linebacker position is definitely one of my favorites to watch and see how these guys are playing and seeing how these guys are utilized. But yeah, I'm again a big proponent. Get your guys and have fun playing football and have fun playing IDP football.
Well, we appreciate all the work that you do. Every game we're getting screenshots of guys with green stickers on their helmets and stuff like that. So it's not an easy task. So speaking of all the good work, what are you working on right now, and what can we expect from you during our season? I guess now within 14 days away.
Yeah, just kind of wrapping up projections. I know these next few weekends are big draft weekends, so might do one final kind of projection sweep this weekend. My week 1 rankings are actually done. So I'm just waiting on word from the men upstairs. I'm waiting for Top Men to give us the green light to go ahead and get those published, and updating the Green Dot article to see if there's anything of note this weekend. And thank you again, everybody, for reading the article. And really, all I'm doing is telling you who's wearing a green sticker on their helmet. I'm not doing not life changing work, but
you literally just changed my life.
I'm just telling you who's wearing a sticker on their helmet. But no, it's always one of my favorite articles to write, and I've really enjoyed doing it. So thank you everybody for reading it. So kind of to see what happens over the course of the weekend.
Well, we thank you for doing that. So that's going to do it for this episode of the IDP After Show. Mike and I would love to hear your thoughts on how we broke down the position. We'd also love to hear some of your favorite buys and sells at the linebacker position as well. Or if you have some offensive linemen you'd like to drop in too, we'd like to hear that as well. So you can be sure to drop those nuggets down below in the comment section. Also be sure to tackle those like, subscribe, and notification buttons so you never miss an episode of the IDP Show or the IDP After Show. For Mike and myself, we say thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch up with you next time.
This was the IDP After Show.